Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, February 24th, 7 p.m., and we are having a committee meetings tonight. I will note that we have one minor modification on the agenda. Under transportation, we do have some additional information about the upcoming closing for the Richland pedestrian passageway, which we think is important to give that information out tonight rather than wait till next Monday when it'll already be closed. So we'll start off with City and Safety Services. Councilmember Grace chairs this and is joined by Council Members Fall and Clodfelter.
Thank you, President Isley. The first item on our agenda is to talk about Athens Beautification 2020, and we are fortunate to have some guests here to talk to us about that. I believe Martina Costanza is going to be our guest speaker, so if you would please come to the podium and introduce yourself and sign in, please, if you would.
Yeah, I am Martina Costanza. I am a junior dance major here at Ohio University. I'm from Vermont. And this semester I started working as a community ambassador with the campus and community engagement. And I work alongside Madeline Ponder as well, so she'll be presenting with me also.
My name is Madeline Ponder, as she stated. I am a first-year student from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm a double major in entrepreneurship and management and strategic leadership. Martina is going to go ahead and talk about our mission.
So what we want to talk about, our mission is to focus on Athens beautification throughout the month of April. So Athens Beautification Month would be an opportunity for collaboration between the community and the university to combat the climate crisis. We want to do that through some climate change actions, including tree planting, the removal of invasive plants, and also planting pollination gardens. These efforts would all go towards making Athens County more resilient and more sustainable. And then in order to reach that goal, we have written up some requests for the City of Athens that Maddie will present to you guys now.
So our request for the City of Athens is to identify locations for tree planting and suggested best days for the planting. Ohio University will coordinate volunteers. The second one is the City of Athens will support Athens beautification by supplying staff time to this effort. And we would like to ask for the use of the Keep Southeast Ohio Beautiful trailer for the use of tools and equipment. We also invite the partnership of the Athens Shade Tree Commission and the Athens Arbor Day Committee to assist with providing tree planting instruction and requirements for care and feeding the trees. We would like to request that April 2020 be known as Athens Beautification Month for our city and larger community. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I think this sounds absolutely wonderful, and I actually ran on most of those issues, so I'm totally in agreement with you. My only question at this point is, would you be open to having community volunteers as well, or do you want to just have those few committees and then have OU students doing that?
For sure, community involvement as well. I think the more people we could have involved would be better.
Okay, fantastic, because I've already invited some of my friends and looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yes, Member Fall.
Thank you. This is near dear. I think it also should be talked about the Athens Beautification Month is going to have several other events along with all the Earth Day celebrations. During that month, there's going to be opportunity for community folk to be able to get a tree that we've gotten 260 trees or something that we've gone ahead and purchased. So we are going to be having tree giveaways and tree demonstration on how to care and feed and plant them. And then I also think that if people don't have the opportunity or can't plant their trees, there will be opportunities for other people of our community to go and help. So that's going to be one way that we're going to hopefully get up there with, maybe 300 or 350 trees planted during the month. So thank you.
Yes, Mayor.
I have a general question. How many volunteers are we potentially thinking about for various projects during Beautification Month?
I would say typically whenever we like organize an event and we invite people to come, I think we usually have around 15 people that will show up. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but I think there's usually a good turnout with students, and I think that if we were also involving community members, we'd be able to have even more.
Well, when you mentioned eradicating invasives, it was music to my ears. And with that said, you know, we have the opportunity to bring back a riparian forest just south of the community center, which one of the big tasks that we have ahead of us with that project is the removal of invasives, or at least starting. It's a long-term project, but I would love to have you helping with that. And I will also open the door for you to come to our meeting that we're having at noon on March 12th to talk with Odionar Ann Bonner. She has been a real champion alongside those of us who've been involved with being able to use this particular 16-acre tract of land to bring it back to life and give the trees a fighting chance with getting rid of a large amount of invasives that are throughout that whole space. So if you'd like to jump in earlier and attend that meeting, I would encourage either one of you to come and kind of hear what's going on, and then from there you can think forward as to what level of involvement there might be for a team of people to go in and help out.
That sounds great. I would love to. Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor, would you tell us where that meeting is going to be taking place?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sure. It'll be at Odionar headquarters on East State Street. I'm blanking on what
Directly across from Bob Evans.
There you go. I don't know the address off the top of my head, but
It's 360 East State Street.
there you go.
360.
It's a place with a lovely pond in front.
Great.
President Nicely.
It's an exciting opportunity. I know that in the past, Barb Harrison has helped us coordinate Beautification Day when we've had as many as 1,000 students. So if I understand now, we're expanding to a month, Beautification Month. And it's our job then to identify locations, since you all have ordered the trees. So I'm assuming then as we identify locations, we'll be notifying you, Barb, so that you can then, your office and the two of you can help us in recruiting then the volunteers.
Yeah.
Do I have the
Yes.
process kind of right?
And
Okay.
Adam, my student, is also involved with this.
Okay.
And especially with the Greek event that we're going to also be having. So there's lots of stuff for people to be able to volunteer with.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it would be great for us to have maybe a sit-down meeting between university and city folks to identify some times and locations and ways of advertising, hey, we need volunteers at this date, this time, to both community members. And because I know in past, when it's Beautification Day, we've had teams of, like, people form teams to go volunteer for Athens Beautification Day, and it's just rather than everybody going all on the same day, people will have opportunities to volunteer different times throughout the month. But that does make it's a different coordinating challenge. So just making sure that people are aware of the opportunities, I think, will be important. Yes,
And I want to bring Sam into this because something else that we've been doing with Beautification Day month time is working with you guys, making a master list so that we can coordinate all the opportunities for people to come out and do great stuff for our community and the crisis emergency. This is directly related to the crisis emergency, and that's why it's being planned the way it is. So.
Yes.
Thank you,
Member
Chrissy.
Crowell.
I would like to, on behalf of the city's Environment and Sustainability Commission, as well as the Office of Sustainability at Ohio University, I'd like to commend the students and the Office of Community Engagement for these efforts. April 22nd, 2020 is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, so I think it's wonderful that we're moving Beautification Day to Beautification Month, so thanks very much. And we would, both the Commission and the Office of Sustainability would like to be as involved as possible. For anyone interested in things going on around the month of April, our office is hosting not only information about Ohio University's efforts, on April 21st, but also countywide, regional-wide efforts. And you can find that information linked through our website, ohio.edu/sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Reisner.
Well, two things. How do you submit a potential planting site for trees or pollinators? Who handles that?
I would suggest that we either forward it to the Athens Arbor Day Committee because, and Adam, this is another thing that we've been doing. We've been identifying various spaces over the last year and a half and been mapping them out. And so if we can put those all on that central mapping, that would probably be the best bet there.
So I'll send it to you and you'll forward it?
I will get you the email that.
Oh, darn.
And could we put that email on the city council page so the community will know?
Thank you.
Because I think I know there's a limit to the number of trees, but I think it would be nice if members of the community had the chance to suggest planting sites or request a tree.
And that's the other thing. It will be on the website, for the city website, where be the opportunities for us being able to put out the trees that we have purchased and some of the opportunities to pick them up and other programs,
Great.
Along with the OU sort of things that's going on. So.
My other question or statement would be with essentially milkweed planting for monarchs. Okay, are you looking into that?
Chris knows a lot about that.
I know some about it, and I do know that the representative from Athens County Soil and Water Conservation came to us and does have some milkweed starts and offered those for us. So we should probably make contact with her again, Teresa Caldwell, I believe. And good point, Councilmember Reisner.
Yeah, that could certainly be included in the.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and I think some of the work on the roundabout areas in the city is also pollinator projects. So.
You two mentioned that you're also planning to put in some pollinator gardens or pollinator areas. Do you have plans that you could share with us about that, and do they include planting milkweed?
I don't think we have any specific plans regarding that yet. I think that would also be something that we would have to discuss with like the Arbor Day Committee and the Shade Tree Commission.
Okay.
I think so far we've mostly been focusing around the trees, but that's something that we're definitely going to have to move into more.
Your ideas are so good that I am optimistic that a lot of people are going to be not only willing but happy to get involved and help with this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Any other questions, comments? We will be in touch. Thank you. Okay.
I do have one other
Oh,
question.
yes.
Are you requesting money? Do you have a budget, and are you requesting money? Not this.
Barb
Okay.
emailed earlier that they were not requesting specific funds, but are requesting support of staff time
through the trailer.
and
With the ability to come back later, maybe to get some money.
if plans develop, or it could be something that trees purchased by the city or labor tools provided with certain, yes.
Okay, thank you.
At this time. We won't prohibit a request it later, but at this time, that was what they said.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda for this committee is the need for a new boiler for the community center. The community center is currently operating on its original boiler that was installed in 1999. And last year, the boiler was identified as being in need of replacement. And they have requested that council appropriate $12,000 and then authorize the expenditure of $112,000 from the capital outlay fund to replace this boiler.
Could you repeat what you said, please, about the $12,000?
I believe that there's already $100,000 appropriated, but they're requesting the appropriation of an additional $12,000 and then authorize the expenditure of $112,000.
Okay, and the additional $12,000 that they're requesting would come from the same budget as the original 100?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the bid process was initiated in 2019, but was unsuccessful. So they're hoping to go through Sourcewell for procurement of the new boiler. And the replacement boiler system will be a high efficiency model at 97%, and the current system is 81% efficient.
What an improvement.
So it is a significant improvement in efficiency. Any other comments or questions? Okay, the next item on the agenda is regarding a solar battery for the water treatment plant. And I'm going to let the mayor speak to this. The city is fortunate to have been identified as a recipient for a grant, and the mayor has the details.
Yeah, this is kind of a nice segue coming off of efficiencies.
Yes.
So going back to late September, early October of 2019, we were made aware of an AEP pilot program for microgrids. And so we reached out and contacted AEP about this to learn more about it, as well as to learn what kind of assets had to be in place in order to create a microgrid. A microgrid needs a solar array and needs a battery system to be fed by the solar array, and then that battery can be used during periods of low or no light to generate power at the solar array. So as council knows, and everyone who's watching tonight knows, that we have roughly a 230 kilowatt solar array that's DC. It's 178 kilowatt AC power that's generated by that solar array that is fed into the water treatment plant. We informed AEP as to what we had in place, and that this was a solar array feeding into a critical asset for the city of Athens. Also indicated to AEP that we have some real challenges when we were affected by the derecho many years ago, and fortunately the worst of things didn't happen, but it was possible that we could have lost complete power to the water treatment plant, and that to be a site to test something like this would be a great place to do it. They were looking at 3 different sites across the state, potentially 4. We were just recently notified, after many exchanges back and forth, between a company called Worley. Worley is out of Tennessee. They are a contractor that specializes in microgrids and storage systems, and they are working with AEP. And like I said, we were just notified recently that we have been selected to be a pilot site for a microgrid down at the water treatment plant. So what will come before council is a temporary easement, temporary construction easement for them to come in, deploy this microgrid battery system, as well as to hook into our solar array and to the water treatment plant. And for a period of 2 years, they will be piloting this, because everyone's still trying to learn about these and how they can be best utilized, starting small scale, but eventually thinking bigger scale, not just here in Athens, but everywhere. So what will be coming before council is, again, asking for council's approval to have a temporary construction easement so that they can gain access to the site, have access for a period of 2 years. At the end of that 2-year period of time, AEP will literally be giving us this microgrid system to where we continue to use it, and we'll have full access and control over this microgrid to do a number of different things. But most importantly, it's resilience. It's resilience for one of our critical assets here in the city of Athens. The temporary construction easement will cover things like use of the premises, the term, access to get onto the property, appearance, repairs, notices, and things of that nature. They will want to test it. What they told us today is that they would like to, under this pilot, they would be exercising this system typically once a month to see how it's working, to get the data they can. I feel that it's for them to have complete access to the data that's being generated by this microgrid and to learn from it is appropriate as we move forward The other thing to share, this is a 95% match. In other words, they would cover 95% of the microgrid cost. We would pick up 5%. And currently, under the draft that they gave us today, that 5% for the city's share would be $28,167, of which we would pay over 3 payments over a course of time, a 3-month, a 6-month payment, and then one just before the system goes live, the final payment of that. So even that $38,167 would be stretched over a period of months to pay it back, which fits within our model down there. And, you know, my hope is in the future that with the successes seen from this microgrid system, that we will see further cost savings, hopefully further cost savings with this microgrid system down at the water treatment plant. And again, it fits right in line with the climate crisis. You know, we're doing some great things in the city of Athens when it comes to not only resilience, but sustainability with the way we vision moving forward with solar and now with a potential microgrid.
Yes, I think that's an excellent move. I applaud the city for making those arrangements, and I'm pretty impressed that you negotiated a 95 and 5% match. That's excellent.
I think that the resilience cannot be underestimated.
No.
Because going forward, we're going to be, you know, we are the economic linchpin of the county too. And so we need to have build our capacity, our resilience to be able to bring in people when they're at their worst too, when they have a lot of crisis. And I think that's essential going forward.
Absolutely.
Community and resilience is two of those parts of that sustainability seat that I'm always talking about. So,
And
thank you.
protecting our drinking water supplies is just a really appropriate thing to invest in. I'm glad that, you know, you've made that a key part of our focus on resiliency.
Mayor, the data that AEP will be collecting throughout the study, I assume that we would have access to that information in terms of, you know, how well it is working, and what changes or improvements need to be made going forward, with, you know, hopefully looking to more systems like that for the city over time. But yeah, hopefully we would also be able to utilize the data, or have access to it to give it to the people who understand it properly to use it.
I believe that to be the case. I will certainly ask them again to make sure that we will have access to it, but I will find out for you.
Thank you.
You know, the other thing, just to share with council real quick, is that the other two current sites are in larger metropolitan areas. So the other thing that's exciting is that we're being looked at down in southeastern Ohio, and in particular here in Athens, to have something like this. So it's fascinating.
Pretty exciting. Member Reisner.
When would this begin?
This will begin right after our last payment to this. It'll sit there and go live. It'll, as well as construction on this is going to happen soon. Let me see if I have dates in here, projected dates for you. But again, it's all predicated upon council passing this temporary easement to gain access to the site. I can get you that information, Councilmember Reisner.
Well, if we go the 3 reading route, March, April is when the ordinance will be passed. I assume we'd make a payment in April, and 3 months after that, the second payment, and then the third payment would hit about December? Or would that fall into the new fiscal year? In other words, will we be paying this over 1 year or possibly 2 years?
Good question.
I think we would be paying this over 1 year.
Just 1 year? Okay.
Correct. In here, you know, I think they'd like to get started as soon as possible on this.
Right.
They'd like to have the pilot project running January 31st of 2021 through April 30th of 2022 for the real piloting, exercising this equipment.
So we'll appropriate all the monies this year then?
Correct.
Thank you. Yes, Member Crowell.
A couple of questions on the other side of the coin here, Mayor. Safety concerns, is there any sort of safety concerns with the battery system, either environmentally or the amount of power that it it might hold? Is this a facility that is inside a building? Is it under lock and key?
It is, and it's a contained system. It's basically a conic-size structure that will be behind the wastewater treatment plant, in between the solar array and the physical building. And then there will be some extensive training, both with our operators, or at least an operator for the water treatment plant. The fire department will be trained as well as to how the battery operates and any precautions that there are on their end. But there will be a containment system that this battery is sitting in. So we feel confident about this system.
I know very little, just a little, not to be dangerous, about these battery systems, and this one is probably the most up-to-date, I would imagine. There are some environmental concerns with the disposal of these after their life expectancy. Do you know, A, the life expectancy of this model?
I
I'm sure
don't.
we will go through the process of disposing of them when they need to be switched.
Yeah, I don't know the lifespan, and I meant to ask that today at the meeting that we had with AEP. I can get you that information as to what the lifespan is, and I can also get you the information on disposal protocol of something of this nature.
Thank you.
Yes, President Isley.
A question for the easement location. We'll have that identified by the time the ordinance comes through, the
We will.
draft. So Monday, okay.
Thank you. And we've talked about a lot of efficiency and resiliency issues, and onto an entirely different topic. It is time for the renewal of the contract that Athens has with the Washington County Jail. And we do have agreements with other jails in the state, but Washington County is the only one that requires that council approve the contract. And so this is, I believe, the same as the agreement was last year. Is that correct? Yes. And it is, the copy of the contract is on our drive. It's when our own regional jail is full, sometimes there's a need to house inmates in other jails. And having this contract with Washington County allows us to utilize space there if they have it available. And it designates that the amount of $68 per day for each person incarcerated in the Washington County Jail would be paid. So, any comments or questions regarding the Washington County Jail contract? Yes, Member Reisner?
Something in my brain's telling me this was more for a female incarceration.
The regional jail here very rarely has any female bed spaces available. And so that is a consistent need. However, I know from conversations that I've had that the last few times we've been looking for bed space, Washington County was also full. And so it's, I'm not sure how often we utilize the Washington County jail space, because I think theirs is often full, but this allows us to utilize their bed space if they have any available. But often, yes, you're correct. The regional jail does not have very many beds for female inmates, and those are frequently the ones that are needed. Okay. If there are no further comments or questions, that ends this committee meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Transportation Committee. That's Councilmember Katsas as chair, joined by Council Members Crowell and Clodfelter. And this is where we are having the minor modification. We're going to talk just briefly so that we can show some images on the pedestrian passageway detours.
Okay. Yes, and we thought it was pertinent at the beginning of the meeting to mention this, because by the next time we get together, this project will be started, and Richland Avenue will be closed, and that's starting on March 2nd for 179 days. The projected reopening of that area by Porter Hall and West Green will happen on 9/11 for vehicular traffic. And that's what you'll be driving over. Well, so just remember, be aware the detours will be going up very soon, and I'm sure we'll all forget, but you forget a couple times, and then we'll be in a new pattern, and it'll be over very quickly as time goes on. So, Transportation Committee this evening. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't know if you had anything additional to add to that, or we're good.
Stimson Avenue. Use Stimson Avenue.
Okay.
And I'm a South Sider, so you see me going down Stimson Avenue.
Okay. All right. On to our regularly scheduled program. So Transportation Committee this evening, we have 3 points. The first one is yet another street closure. And so we're moving through these a little bit sooner in the year, and I've been very appreciative of the work that's been done and the documents that are being delivered to us. On our drive, we do have the Athens Uptown Art Event, which is sponsored by AMAC. This is a street closure that's going to be on August 15th, and that is a Saturday. It's Union Street, just for one block between Congress and Court. And so this will not impact any intersections. It'll just eliminate Union Street from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., allowing for setup and tear down. Same as what it's been in the prior years, and I thank the members of AMAC for putting this together. Does anybody have any specific questions?
Did you say it's only going to be one block of Union?
Correct.
Or, okay.
Yes. Yep. Between Congress and Court Street.
Okay.
Okay. Member Crowell, if you can.
Okay, I will take the second item here on tonight's agenda, the Stimson Avenue LPA agreement. This is a little bit different of an LPA agreement. We have these with the Ohio Department of Transportation here and then, and this one for the Stimson Avenue 2021 project. This is pretty much of a standard agreement allowing the city to administer this project, partially using federal funds. And so this agreement lists the proposed ODOT contribution of $2,126,815 for this project. That represents 95% of the eligible costs for this project. And this is secured through the small city program. So council will be seeing an ordinance come together to appropriate funds for this construction of this project. This will happen later once we have a full estimate from the designer, which includes the utility relocation costs and other items. And that is the maximum amount. That $2,126,815 is the maximum amount that will come from those federal funds. Any questions about this LPA agreement? Okay, thank you.
Okay. We're moving right down through the list here. The last one. This one might take a little bit longer because I'm getting ready to say the P word. Parking, continuous parking in the same location, and this is asking for an amendment to Regulation 753, and this was something that. And this is going back to September when, and this is education for some people that weren't here. Captain Harvey from the police department had made a suggestion of moving cars in ordinance to comply with the 24-hour rule. And he was making a suggestion of moving them 20 feet from where they were originally parked. And this was mostly to combat the issue that we've run into now, and that all cities have, that you cannot chalk a tire anymore. And so we spoke about it in September, kind of took the temperature. It was very cold, so nothing really happened with it. This one is, this one's specifically just looking at where we have spaces that are delineated, so painted spaces on our right-of-way, that they want, the vehicle must be moved to a different space, and this is the suggested change. And that's why I forwarded. It seemed like you couldn't really read the exact word that was, or the exact sentence that was being suggested for change. So this is something that everybody, we're still working with. I want to remind everybody that so many council people have come before us trying to solve this dilemma. And I think the thing that I was thinking about is, as I had my conversation with Captain Harvey today, is, where are we at currently with the 24-hour rule? Do we still have a storage problem? I personally believe we do, and it's something that I personally, if someone parked a vehicle on my property for an extended period of time, I'd probably be trying to figure out how to work with it. So, with the city, it's the same way. I believe that we do need to offer parking. And of course, that's part of the thing. That's part of what our right-of-ways do. But if we start to have storage of vehicles, so that's, this is proposed. I am kind of curious about how many spaces we have and where they're painted, because I can think of well, we have some over on the west side. Another area that was mentioned was Wallace over on the east side, but those aren't full boxes. They're lines that maybe come a foot or two off of the curb, and what they're there for is to encourage parking so that you can fit as many vehicles as you can. So it basically encourages that you'll have the proper, that you can maximize the amount of vehicles on that street during the times that it's necessary. So, yes.
Perhaps if this change does go into effect, the city should create a map of the lined spaces that it pertains to, so that there's no confusion in areas like Wallace, where there are some lines from the city, but not exactly the same ones. Mm-hmm. Either that or put signs in those areas.
Well, and the other, and we have areas, and this was an interesting thing that I did learn today that maybe Member Grace is already aware of, but on Congress, the citizens have gone out and actually painted these lines to encourage it.
The pink ones.
Yes, yeah.
And that was my question. I was going to say, is delineated, defined somewhere currently in our code? Because if not, it would absolutely have to be. Because are the pink hash marks that were painted on the curb by neighbors on my street, they did go get permission to do that. It didn't just go rogue painting, but they got permission, and were told specifically to use pink paint because it's not official. There's no enforcement of parking between these pink hash marks that are painted on the curb. They're simply there to help residents or visitors park in a way to maximize the number of spaces. And so I think it would really need to be clearly defined in our code what a delineated space is. And I also question whether we as a city want to do this, because what if, and how the enforcement would work. And I know this is going to be a topic we'll need to consider if we do end up using the license plate recognizing cameras for enforcement, because I've spoken with a lot of people, my own daughter included, who drive somewhere every day but frequently park in the exact same space on the street. So my daughter leaves for school in the morning, comes back, and if the space right in front of our house is available, she reparks there. So if parking enforcement happened to go by after 3 o'clock 2 days in a row, her car would be in the same spot. So even though she had left and returned, there would not necessarily be any way of knowing that she had moved. So should someone not be allowed to repark in the same space, whether delineated or not, with this? And I think, if someone leaves and returns to their home and the most convenient space is still available or is available again, that they would want to park there. And I think knowing whether someone has moved from a space and returned to it is going to make really tricky enforcement. So just...
I think that something like this, especially in closer in neighborhoods, because I can see where the line marking would go ahead. I think that what we're doing for citizens is making walking the car even harder, because if there was someplace, I haven't driven my car, but I'm going out to walk it because it's 24 hours, and the space in front of me is open, but there's no other place except for 4 blocks down the way. That's a hassle for people who we want to encourage not to drive and to encourage walking and those sort of things. And this is kind of like putting once again parking as a fundamental driver of what should be other things in our neighborhoods, and that we need to get away from this 24-hour period. This may work for maybe a 48-hour or a 72-hour period, which I think we need to move towards, because we need to get away from walking that car, especially in the close-in neighborhoods.
And I would agree that I think it would be problematic. I definitely agree that enforcement could be very tricky, but I also think that it could be problematic if people are not permitted to go into the space right in front of them or right behind them, because that's not 20 feet. Because, that is moving the car to a completely different spot, and that perhaps we ought to look carefully at how that section is worded.
And the 20 feet is off the table. That's not.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I'll also make mention too that this isn't. There isn't an idea that we're going to do delineated spaces everywhere in the city. The cost and maintenance of maintaining that much more striping is just not. It sounds like they do this in areas where they want to encourage, parking in certain places so that that it flows better, or you can fit the vehicles that seem to need to be there. So we're not going to have spaces everywhere.
I would suggest that before undelineated streets that are right now not delineated, there needs to be a very interactive planning, because people start getting somewhat upset because there is this tension between it's a public road, but I really like my front yard drive, space, and that it needs to have some warning. And I think that there needs to be a very logical, fair way of identifying streets that need to be delineated, whether it's citizen complaints, petition by maybe a couple blocks that they've been having trouble and you can do it for a while, or some way to really interact with the people when the delineation, if any of it goes forward.
Member Smedley?
I had a question mainly about the difference between the first line and that proposed language and the second, which is the highlighted section. It sounds like right now, or in the first line, you cannot park in a continuous spot for longer than 24 hours. Correct, right? And then the second line says if spaces are delineated, you can't park in the same spot for more than 24 hours. So how is that different? What are we saying that's new? Because the law, the way language states now, would include any parking, delineated or not, correct?
Correct.
So I guess I don't understand what the red language is doing.
I think
I'm going to take a stab at this.
Yes.
I think this makes it more enforceable for city.
But the first one does that.
Yeah.
It's,
It already
you
says
can
it.
park in the same like under the first line, if you move your car 6 inches, you've moved your car. It's not in the same space as it was because where there are no lines. On streets where the parking spaces are delineated, you can't just move a few feet. You have to move to a different spot. But then, because it's currently difficult to enforce, because so that's why there was previously this proposal of requiring movement of 20 feet. It's because if someone challenges, we can't say, well, you didn't move your car far enough to count. And it is tricky enforcement. Right, so they're wanting to be able to require that someone move to a different space on streets where the lines are painted, where the spots are marked.
And so then I would agree enforcement would be very.
Yeah.
I think this is still cold.
Yeah. So I would throw it out and see what happens. So
Gotta get out of the parking business.
do we have any other
It's
comments?
unsolvable.
Any comments from the audience?
I guess, I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
No,
If I may make one
no,
more
please
before
go
we go to
ahead.
the audience. Just thinking about the enforcement, my understanding when we were previously discussing those cameras that would be mounted in the parking enforcement vehicles, part of the argument for making that investment is that having those rather than having to do some sort of chalking on the street or something would be much more efficient for I can't think of a better term, please forgive me, than for the meter maids, the people that work with parking enforcement. But for the example that Member Grace brought up of someone who leaves during the day and comes back to the very same spot, that would almost suggest that the parking enforcement personnel would have to drive around a lot and take pictures with their cameras at multiple times a day because you wouldn't, her daughter might be coming home at 3 every day. Someone else might have a very different schedule. And that would somewhat defeat the purpose if the parking enforcement people had to spend their whole day driving around. So I do think the enforcement is an aspect of this that we would have to consider very carefully.
So right now we have one person that's tasked with that because they're the only one that can drive the right-hand Jeep. So with that new technology, you can actually task more people to just drive a regular vehicle, and they're not driving as slow. Well, they're still going to drive within the speed limits, but they'll be able to cover more ground, and they'll be able to also employ more people throughout. So right now you do have people that can kind of game the system because they know when these people go home. They know if there's a holiday weekend, well, they might be able to squeeze 3 days out of a space and not have to move it. So I think with, that new technology, and that was kind of when this was coming forward, if we're already thinking about new technology, is that going to solve the problem or help with some of the policing? And then, what is this additional, change?
I think I would suggest that it would be wise to ask a lot of detailed questions about how they plan to handle the enforcement and see if it would alleviate that concern. Because I think that issue that Member Grace brought up would be a factor for a lot of people in the community.
Yes.
Would it be worth having Harvey here to do a presentation about that?
It'd be nice. I'd like to see him. Yeah.
Can certainly do that.
Okay.
Yeah, if he understands how the camera would work as far as, does it do a GPS tag with the photo, and that's and how precise is it, or how do they know whether or not the car moved?
I need to better understand the system, because it could be as simple as, if I parked in front of my house, which would be dangerous because it's long height. But if I did, and got in my car the next morning and drove into work, and then at the evening drove back and parked in the exact same space, it's not likely that the position of my tires, my wheels, are going to look exactly the same. But again, I need to dig deeper into the technology behind this whole system, not just the license plate reader, but what geotagging is there, what is the specificity of the images they're looking at? Is it like facial recognition, but for a car, and it's looking to see, is everything look the same as it did a day or two ago? So council, just know that I need to better understand the system as well, but it wouldn't, I'm not opposed to asking Captain Harvey to come and talk to this issue unto itself.
That'd be great. Okay.
Okay.
Did anybody in the audience want to speak? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Then, and with that, we are done with the Transportation Committee.
Planning and Development's next, with Councilmember Fall chairing this, joined by Councilmembers Grace, Reisner, and Smedley.
Our only agenda item tonight is a Title 49 certificate of registration that is now being asked for by the city and being filled out by Horizon. Do you want to details or anything? It's pretty straightforward. This is our new system that we put together to make it easier to do some of these right-of-way things, but to make sure that we have a lot of oversight through that process. And so that's the city, what the city is doing now is fulfilling that process now. So on your hard drive, you have the application and all the other things that needed to go through with it, the bonding and those sort of things. So.
And just by way of background, last year, or at the end of December 2018, Council passed an ordinance that put into place this new legislation, and we're complying. We worked with Ricker and Eckler and the law firm to assist us with this so that we would be complying with federal and state regulations. So we've worked through that, added this to it, and as I understand, we're going to get maybe 10 to 15 of these applications that will be coming through, the registrations.
So, thank you. Thank you to the administration for going through and doing this. So, any other questions? Any questions from council? So, audience? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Finance and Personnel Committee is next, with Councilmember Crowell chairing it, joined by Councilmembers Reisner, Kotsis, and Smedley.
Thank you, President Nisley. We have a number of appropriations and transfers that will come up next week, and I'd like to talk about those today. First of all, we have already discussed and read an amendment for purchasing new software for the city's financial systems, specifically in the auditor's office. And it turns out that we authorized an expenditure of funds for the new software, but we did not appropriate the money. So we will be amending the ordinance next week and we'll have to pass this on suspension. And this is specifically $175,000, a contract with CMI. It comes out of our capital improvement funds auditor, 580.120. So we'll be seeing that next week. Any comments on this item from the committee? Yes, Member Reisner.
Does this appropriation include this? You say strictly the software, no hardware is involved?
We had two separate ordinances. This one is just the software.
Just the software.
And the server was a second ordinance.
And that's not included here.
It is not included here. I'll have to go back and see if our language was correct in that one, but the auditor did let me know that this first one was not correct, so we'll have to fix that, make sure we're appropriating.
Okay, just want to make sure we've got our ducks in a row.
Any other questions from other council members, mayor, audience? Okay, thank you. Staying with further appropriations, we have some decreases to push through. We need to reduce the tourism 212.120 TC 300 by $6,000. This was an over budgeting for the Athens City County Visitors Bureau. And so we will be decreasing by $6,000. Any questions from the committee on the decrease in amounts? Other council members?
How to get over budgeted.
I'm not sure of the exact, Mayor Hecht is not, oh, she is here with us tonight. We're not sure exactly.
Auditor Heck. Yeah.
Auditor Hecht, sorry. Can we make her mayor?
I just wondered.
I do the revenue that was in the budget, and I think that some of these things we look at and we think it's going to, the TGT, of course, is our hotel, our lodging tax. And the thing is, the only thing we put in that tourism fund from there anymore is the money that we're going to send to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So it really has to be budgeted exactly what we think we're going to get. And so it was just the budget had more money in it than I think we're going to get, because the last 2 years have been very, very similar in amounts. So unless we get a new hotel or something else happens that would cause that to bump up, we just really can't over budget that, because that's the revenue's not going to come in.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Could that have been because there is a new hotel in the city of Athens now with the Athens Central Hotel? I don't know. I'm trying to think through.
I mean, I did leave it increased, but not, actually, I was going to reduce it by $7,000, and that would still be $2,000 more than what we got last year. So we've got a good cushion in there now, even for that one. But that might have been the thinking, but I don't think that much is going to come in.
Any other
Always hope.
comments?
Yeah.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on, we have another decrease in 101.718 TC 500 by $130,000. This was originally budgeted for lease payments for the parking meters, but we decided to purchase them outright, so that money can be decreased in that fund. Any comments or questions about parking meter decision? Yes, we're pleased with that.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you. What generally happens to those funds when you decrease it? If it was already allocated and you decrease it, does it just go back to general fund?
Auditor Hecht, I think that's correct, but the expert will tell us.
So yes, that's out of the general fund. It just goes back into the fund. So you probably haven't seen very many unappropriated balance sheets, but it will go into the unappropriated balance. The money is available as we move along. If somebody needs something, then we can appropriate it. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
But we do need that in the general fund anyway. So.
Yes, Member Katsas.
Yes, thank you. Is the, so the payment, so are we saving on interest?
Yes.
Are we, okay. And how many, I mean, is this like in a year early that we're paying this off? Or, I mean, I feel like we just got those.
No, we have a loan, we
Yeah.
have in our budget are the loan payments.
Okay.
But the calculations were done, I don't remember now, I could go back and look at it. We went all through that, where we looked at what the company was charging us to let us, it was a lease to buy kind of thing for 5 years. And then what we would pay in interest at our local bank is so minimal that it was just more worthwhile. It saved us, a fair amount of money to just buy them outright and then pay that note off.
Okay. Very good.
And Member Katsas, that is coming up on our committee agenda. It's the last item on our agenda,
Okay.
the note renewal there.
All right. Perfect.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, and the last appropriation we have is grant award for the fire department for some equipment. This would be to appropriate in the FEMA fund, 588.580 TC 600 of $3,252. We would then transfer from 588 to the general fund and appropriate for the equipment purchase. Do I have that correct, Auditor?
Perfect.
All right. Any questions about the fire department?
What are they buying?
Turnout gear.
Oh, turnout.
Any other questions about this
That is one full set of turnout gear.
one full set? 3,500.
That's why a fireman looks like a fireman.
That's right.
It's a lot of heavy gear added onto when they run in there.
Okay, if there's no further questions, that's all we have for appropriations and transfers. And we'll move on to the second item on our agenda, the Service Safety Director plan. And that refers to his going on leave to serve in the, to be deployed in his position as a colonel in the, Mr. Stone in the Ohio National Guard and U.S. Army. And the plan here I have. The plan that we will be presenting from the administration next week is that while Service Safety Director Stone is absent from the city, the police chief, Chief Pyle, will be serving as both the Service Safety Director and the Chief of Police. Most of his focus, as I understand from the administration, will be on Service Safety Director duties. But he will still be performing at least the statutory responsibilities or functions of the Chief of Police. Captain Ralph Harvey will be performing his functions as a captain, and he will remain in that position, but he will also be the acting department head and will be performing those functions of the Chief of Police. The plan is to provide both of these positions with a 10% stipend, given their extra responsibilities while Service Safety Director Stone is deployed. And additional repercussions of these moves will be that the number of police lieutenants will be decreased by one in our city's FTE staffing. And will be increased by one, and the patrol officers will be decreased by one. And this will be a permanent change, but we could go back to the older numbers if necessary, and possibly through attrition once Service Safety Director Stone is back in our city in the position of Service Safety Director. This plan should save the city quite a bit of money, given that we won't be paying Service Safety Director Stone his salary. And we will just be doing these two 10% stipends for Captain Harvey and for Chief Pyle. Are there any questions about the Service Safety Director absence plan? Yes,
Two
Member
questions,
Smedley.
thank you. So we're effectively taking 3 positions and they're being performed by 2 people.
That is correct.
And are there any concerns about that?
I can let the mayor speak to this. I would say no concerns.
No concerns.
No concerns.
No, because Chief Pyle will still be here, and operationally, Captain Harvey will be directing things within the police department, but he's still going to be attending briefings in the police department. He's still going to be well aware of everything going on, but will also be serving in the capacity of the interim Service Safety Director.
Okay.
It also gives us the opportunity to observe functionally some of the lieutenants that are serving in that role, because we won't have the same chief of police forever. And so it actually opens up some opportunities for us to observe some of the other officers within the police department structure.
I had a second question.
Yes.
You mentioned this would also impact our number of patrol officers and number of lieutenants. Can you explain the connection between why that also changes?
I didn't quite understand that. Can you speak to that?
Well, we had to bring someone up from somewhere, and for them to come up from the patrol officers into that lieutenant role
Got it.
is what was the most obvious direction to go with this as we move forward. And as Councilmember Crowell mentioned, in time, we could actually revert back and draw down from the number of lieutenants and bring back that patrol officer again, in a year and a half time out, possibly two.
Member Reisner?
Yeah, I was just wondering how this would impact our deputy service safety director position. Do you see that person getting more responsibility or taking on more tasks that otherwise wouldn't happen?
Our current deputy service safety director, is deeply involved in a lot of things now with the restructuring that has gone on with my staff. He will certainly be continuing to do his functions. He may pick up a few additional functions as we move forward. But I also know that Chief Pyle has been in a lot of the meetings that are going on for my staff, and
That's correct.
is watching what's going on and understanding how things function. He's even sat behind Andy Stone's desk. And, yeah, we feel the transition is going to be smooth as we move forward. So certainly Andrew Chickie's going to be very involved in a lot of the operations under the SSD.
I just will say that all of the gentlemen who are part of this sort of restaffing I have great respect for the jobs that they do. I am well aware that Service Safety Director Stone is very knowledgeable, having come from the engineer's office and what he does for the city. I'm not concerned, but I think there will be a bit of a learning curve as Chief Pyle fully gets his feet wet, and with the new Deputy Service Safety Director, I think all these gentlemen are going to have more on their plate, and I'm confident in their ability to do so. But I think there'll be some time where we'll have many of us, I think, trying to make sure things are going smoothly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is that it's a team. My staff is a team, and we all work together and assist each other when need be. So again, I'm confident that this is going to work out well. I'm also confident that Colonel Stone is going to do an outstanding job protecting whomever he's protecting and returning home safely.
And just one other comment.
Yes.
Thank you. To your point, these are very different jobs. So I agree with that sentiment, but I also understand these are very talented gentlemen. So, but understandable if there will be a learning curve. Just to go back real quick again to the number of patrol officers, just to be clear that we're okay with that, especially given some of the concerns that we're seeing on the west side. We're going to have fewer patrol officers on the streets, correct, with this transition?
No.
Oh, okay. I must have misunderstood.
Lieutenants still patrol.
Lieutenants still patrol.
So
Okay.
one of the patrol officers will now have that title, but will still be patrolling.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that is important. On any given day, you can look out and see, if you pay close attention, that our lieutenants are in the cruisers and patrolling,
Thank you.
A lot of vandalism.
along with our patrol officers.
Any other questions about the plan for the Service Safety Director and staffing issues?
Thank you, Bill.
Well, you know what?
Yes.
The start date on this, because I know it's coming soon.
It is coming soon.
This just came up in my safety meeting this morning. I believe it's within, I think we're 3 weeks out from Service Safety Director leaving.
March 15th.
Okay, we are going to move on to our last item, the parking meter note renewal.
Yes.
As discussed in the previous appropriation, we took out a note to pay outright for our new parking meters, and the city administration has recommended paying $70,000 on this note. We should be able to pay this off. That would leave us a little over $390,000 remaining on the note, and we should be able to pay that off in 5 or 6 years at that rate. And as Auditor Hecht noted, we got a very good rate through our local bank, and we have budgeted the interest and everything in this amount of what the current, I believe it's about $467,000 if I'm correct.
Exactly.
And so this last item is to appropriate $70,000 to pay down this note. Any questions from the committee? Parking meters. Yep. Other members of council? Mayor? Community? That ends appropriations or finance and personnel. Thank you.
And I think that ends our committee meetings for tonight. We'll adjourn. It's 8:11 p.m. Thank you.